I was thousands of miles away, sleeping in a hot military tent, when my marriage ended with a single email. No warning. No phone call. No, we need to talk. Just a subject line that said, "Divorce papers attached." My name is Colton Hale. I had been deployed overseas for 7 months. Most days were long and exhausting, but I kept telling myself it would be worth it. Every extra shift, every missed holiday, every lonely night, it was all for our future. For me and my wife, Betrayal Vaughn. That morning started like any other. Dust in the air. Heavy boots. A quick check of my inbox before heading out. I expected maybe a message from Betrayal about the house or something small from back home. Instead, I saw that email. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe spam. Maybe a joke in bad taste. But when I opened it, my hands started shaking. It was short, cold, straight to the point. She said she had filed for divorce. She said our marriage had been over for a long time. She wrote that she couldn't live feeling alone anymore. She said she hoped I would understand. Understand what? I was deployed. I was serving overseas. I was working every day so we could build a stable life when I returned. I read the email 3 times, hoping the words would change. They didn't. Then something inside me told me to check our joint bank account. We had been saving for years. Careful budgeting. No big vacations. No luxury spending. We had planned to buy our first real home together when I came back. That account held everything we worked for. When the page loaded, my stomach dropped. The balance was almost zero. I blinked and refreshed the screen. Still the same number. I went through the transaction history slowly. Large transfers. Multiple withdrawals. It didn't happen in one day. It happened over weeks. While I was here counting days until I could hold my wife again, she was emptying our account back home. I felt something break inside me. Not just my heart, something deeper. Trust. Pride. Security. I tried calling her immediately. Straight to voicemail. I sent a short message asking what was going on. No reply. That night, while the rest of the unit slept, I sat alone outside the tent staring at the dark sky. I had faced danger before. I had handled pressure. But nothing prepared me for this kind of betrayal. She didn't wait for me to come home. She didn't fight for us. She didn't even respect me enough to say it to my face. Just an email. And an empty bank account. That was the moment I realized my biggest battle wasn't overseas. It was waiting for me back home. When the shock started to settle, reality hit me even harder. I wasn't just heartbroken. I was almost broke. I went back into the account and forced myself to look carefully at every transaction. $84,000. That's how much we had saved together over 6 years. Gone. The transfers weren't random. They were organized. Smaller amounts at first. 5,000. 10,000. Then larger ones. 20,000 at a time. It looked careful, almost patient. Like someone making sure not to raise alarms. The timeline hurt the most. The withdrawals started about 2 months into my deployment. Around the same time Betrayal's messages became shorter. Around the time she stopped saying, "I love you," at the end of our calls. I leaned back in my chair inside the communications tent and tried to breathe normally. My chest felt tight. My mind kept replaying memories. Our wedding day, the way she cried when I first left for training, how she promised we would get through anything together. I called the bank's military support line. The representative confirmed the transfers were made using full account access. No alerts had been triggered because it was a joint account. Joint. That word felt like a joke now. Later that evening, I received official documents through military processing. Divorce paperwork. Signed and filed in our home county. The reason listed. Emotional abandonment due to prolonged absence. I read that line over and over. Emotional abandonment? I was deployed under orders. I didn't choose to leave for fun. I left because it was my duty, and because the steady income and benefits gave us security. She had always said she was proud of me. Now it was being used against me. Some of the guys noticed something was wrong. I told them it was nothing. I didn't want pity. I didn't want rumors spreading through the unit. I kept my voice steady. I kept my face calm. But inside, I felt humiliated. There's something deeply painful about knowing the person you trusted most made plans behind your back while you were counting down the days to see them again. That night I tried calling Betrayal one more time. Straight to voicemail again. I left a short message. Why? That was all I said. No yelling. No threats. Just one word. She never answered. I stared at the ceiling of my bunk for hours. I wasn't just losing my marriage. I was losing the life I thought was waiting for me. The house we planned, the future kids we talked about, the quiet evenings on the porch. And the money wasn't just money. It was sacrifice. Missed birthdays. Skipped vacations. Extra shifts. It was proof of effort. Now it felt like proof of my blindness. I didn't know the full story yet. I didn't know where the money went or who was standing next to her while she signed those papers. But I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't impulsive. This was planned. I couldn't sit with questions anymore. I needed answers. Since Betrayal refused to respond, I called the one person back home I trusted completely, my older sister, Maris. Maris had always been protective of me. She lived about 20 minutes from our house. When she answered the phone, she immediately heard something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. I told her everything. The email, the empty account, the divorce papers. There was a long silence on the other end. Then she sighed. "Colton, I didn't know how to tell you." My heart dropped. She explained that over the past few months, she had seen Betrayal around town. Not alone. With a man Maris didn't recognize at first. Tall, well-dressed, confident. They weren't acting like friends. They were holding hands. His name, she later found out, was Landon Pierce, a real estate broker in the area. Someone who specialized in high-end properties. The words felt like another punch. "How long?" I asked quietly. Maris hesitated. "At least a couple of months." A couple of months. That matched the bank withdrawals almost perfectly. She told me she didn't want to interfere in my marriage without proof. She thought maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe a business deal. But as weeks passed, it became obvious it wasn't business. I thanked her for telling me. My voice sounded calm, but inside I felt like everything was collapsing again. After we hung up, I sat there replaying the timeline in my head. The shorter phone calls. The excuses about being busy. The times she said she was tired and couldn't talk long. While I was walking patrol under a foreign sky, she was building something new with someone else. And now the money made sense. Landon was a real estate broker. Large withdrawals. High-end properties. My chest tightened as the pieces started fitting together. The money hadn't disappeared randomly. It was being used for something specific. Something permanent. I logged back into the account and started taking screenshots of everything. Every transaction. Every date. Every amount. I emailed copies to a secure personal folder. If this was going to turn into a legal fight, I needed records. For the first time since reading that email, my sadness slowly began turning into something else. Clarity. This wasn't just a wife who fell out of love. This wasn't sudden confusion or emotional loneliness. This was planning. Careful planning while I was away. She didn't just leave me. She replaced me. And she used our future to fund it. I didn't yell. I didn't break anything. I just stared at the transaction history one more time and made a quiet decision. If she thought I would come home broken and silent, she didn't know me at all. Being deployed meant I couldn't just fly home and confront her. I was under orders. My location, my schedule, none of it belonged to me right now. That feeling of being stuck made everything worse. I requested permission to speak with the base legal officer. A few days later, I sat across from a military attorney in a small office with plain walls and a metal desk. I handed him copies of the bank records and divorce documents. He reviewed everything carefully. "Since it's a joint account," he said, "she technically has access. But the timing and the amounts could still matter in divorce proceedings." That word again. Proceedings. Everything felt cold and procedural. Like my life had turned into paperwork. He explained that because I was deployed, there were certain protections under military law. Divorce cases involving active service members could be delayed. Financial disputes could be reviewed more closely. That gave me a small sense of control. But then he read the reason listed in her filing. Emotional abandonment due to prolonged absence. He looked up at me. That's a common claim in cases involving deployment. Common. The word made my jaw tighten. I wasn't out partying. I wasn't hiding from responsibility. I was serving overseas under official orders. I left the office with a list of next steps: gather documentation, avoid direct confrontation, and wait until I returned home to take formal action. Waiting was the hardest part. Back in my bunk that night, I thought about every time Betrayal had told me she supported my career. Every time she hugged me goodbye before training. Every letter she sent early in our marriage. Had it all been real? Or had she slowly changed while I was gone? I refused to let anger take over. Anger makes mistakes, and I couldn't afford mistakes. Instead, I started organizing everything. I made a timeline. Date of deployment, dates of major withdrawals, dates of shorter phone calls, date of divorce. Filing the pattern was clear. The financial changes came first. The emotional distance followed. The divorce papers came last. It wasn't sudden. It was strategic. I stopped trying to call her. If she wanted silence, she would have it. I would communicate only through official channels from now on. One night, while writing down notes, something shifted inside me. The pain was still there. The betrayal still burned. But beneath it, something steadier was forming. Focus. She had acted while I was physically far away, assuming I was powerless. But distance doesn't erase responsibility. And it doesn't erase consequences. I didn't know yet how everything would unfold. I didn't know what she had truly done with the money. But I knew this wasn't over. A week later, Maris called me again. Her voice sounded different this time, tense, almost angry. "Colton," she said, "I think I found something." She told me she had run into an old friend who worked at the county property records office. During casual conversation, the topic of recent lakefront sales came up. One property stood out, a newly purchased lake house just outside the city. The buyer's name wasn't Betrayals. It was Landon Pierce. But that wasn't the part that made my stomach turn. The purchase date matched almost exactly with one of the largest withdrawals from our joint account. $25,000. Cash down payment. I felt my pulse in my ears. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I checked twice," Maris said quietly. "And Colton, renovations already started." Renovations. So it wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just divorce. It was a new life being built with money we had saved together. Money meant for our future home. I hung up and immediately logged into our account again. I examined the largest transaction more carefully. The bank required dual authentication for withdrawals over $50,000, but this one was split into smaller transfers done within days of each other. Clever. But something caught my eye in the account settings. 4 high-value transfers, there was a digital confirmation log, including device information. I requested a detailed access report from the bank's secure system. 2 days later, the report came through. The withdrawals were authorized from Betrayal's registered device. But there was also a digital confirmation under my name for one of the larger transfers. My confirmation. Except I never approved anything. The timestamp showed it was verified at 3:12 a.m., local time back home. That would have been early afternoon where I was deployed, and I was on duty in the field at that exact time. There was no way I could have confirmed that transfer. My breathing slowed, not from panic, but from realization. She hadn't just drained the account. She had approved a transfer using my authorization. That wasn't just betrayal. That was fraud. I forwarded the authentication logs to the military attorney immediately. He responded within hours, asking for additional details. For the first time since this started, I didn't feel helpless. I felt steady, because if she had simply left and taken what she legally could, that would have been painful but clean. But forging financial approval while I was deployed? That crossed a line. And lines like that leave evidence. She thought I was too far away to notice. Too distracted. Too broken. But she underestimated one thing. I was patient. When the attorney reviewed the authentication logs, his tone changed completely. "This isn't just divorce territory anymore," he told me. "If your authorization was forged, that's serious." He referred me to a civilian attorney who specialized in financial misconduct cases involving military families. His name was Gideon Kessler. I scheduled a secure call with him the next day. Gideon's voice was calm and precise. He asked detailed questions, dates, times, access records, deployment logs. I provided everything I had documented. After reviewing the information, he said something that stayed with me. She assumed distance meant protection. He explained that because I was deployed at the time of the large transfer, and because I had duty records proving I couldn't have approved it, the digital confirmation raised major red flags. "Do not contact her," Gideon said firmly. "Let her think you're processing the divorce quietly. Meanwhile, we gather everything." So that's what I did. I stopped reacting emotionally. I stopped imagining confrontations. I focused only on facts. Gideon began preparing formal financial subpoenas. He requested detailed banking access logs, device identification reports, and documentation related to the lake house purchase. Maris helped quietly on her end, keeping an eye on public property filings. Meanwhile, Brielle remained silent. No calls. No messages. No attempts to explain herself. At first, that silence hurt. Then I realized it was useful. If she believed I was broken and overwhelmed, she wouldn't be careful. I went back to my daily routine on base. Training. Briefings. Field operations. I performed my duties exactly as before. No one would have guessed my personal life was collapsing. But inside, something had shifted. I wasn't operating from heartbreak anymore. I was operating from strategy. Gideon updated me a week later. The subpoenas were approved. Bank records would be formally reviewed. Property purchase documents would be examined for fund sources. Give it time, he said. Paper trails don't lie. For the first time since that email arrived, I felt a sense of control returning. Not anger. Not revenge in the loud, dramatic sense. Just calm preparation. She had made her moves quietly. Now I was making mine even quieter. And I knew something she didn't. Truth leaves footprints. About a month later, Maris called again. This time she didn't hesitate. They're engaged, she said. For a second, I didn't react. The words felt distant, like they belonged to someone else's life. Who told you? I asked. It's public record at the county clerk's office. They filed paperwork for a wedding venue deposit. And Colton, the lake house renovations are almost finished. I closed my eyes and let the information settle. Engaged. So that was the plan all along. The divorce email. The fast paperwork. The drained account. The new property. It wasn't chaos. It was transition. She wasn't leaving uncertainty. She was stepping into something already built. And she used our savings to build it. Maris described the house. New flooring. Custom kitchen cabinets. Landscaping by the water. Expensive work. All paid in cash or direct transfers. Gideon confirmed what we suspected. The money trail from our joint account connected directly to the property upgrades and initial down payment. Every transfer matched contractor invoices and deposit dates. The paper trail was clean. Clean for us. Not for her. I asked Gideon one important question. Does he know? He paused. If the funds came from your joint account without proper authorization, and if there's potential fraud involved, he may not fully understand the risk he's tied to. So Landon might have believed Brielle had full rights to that money. Or maybe he didn't ask. Either way, his name was now connected to assets funded through questionable transfers. I imagined them walking through that house together, planning their wedding, believing the past was neatly closed. They probably thought I was too far away to interfere. That by the time I returned home, everything would be finalized and untouchable. They underestimated timing. Because legal processes move quietly until they don't. Gideon informed me that once the subpoenas were fully processed, we would file a motion to freeze any assets directly linked to disputed funds, including the lake house, including renovations, including any associated property. I didn't smile. I didn't feel satisfaction yet, but I felt something steady and controlled. They were building a future on money that wasn't fully theirs. And foundations built on deception don't stay stable for long. I continued performing my duties overseas like nothing had changed. I spoke calmly in meetings. I completed assignments. I kept my composure. But back home, paperwork was stacking up. And soon it would land in front of them. By the time my deployment ended, everything was in motion. I landed back in the U.S. with a small bag and a clear mind. I didn't go straight home. I went straight to Gideon's office. He had everything organized: bank records, authentication logs, contractor invoices, property purchase documents, deployment duty confirmations. The timeline was precise. The motion to freeze the property has been filed, he said. The hearing is scheduled for next week. That was the first time Brielle would see me since the email. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Quiet. Controlled. No drama. Just legal process. When Brielle walked in, she looked confident at first. Then she saw me. Her expression changed. Not guilt. Not sadness. Shock. Landon was sitting beside her. He looked uncomfortable but composed, like someone who thought this was a routine divorce dispute. Gideon presented the evidence calmly. He walked the judge through the timeline step by step. He showed the joint account withdrawals. He showed my deployment logs proving I couldn't have authorized the digital confirmation. He showed the property purchase dates aligning perfectly with the transfers. Then came the authentication report. The judge studied it carefully. Are you disputing this authorization? The judge asked Brielle directly. She hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Her attorney attempted to argue that as a joint account holder, she had financial access. But Gideon clarified the issue wasn't simple access. It was the questionable digital confirmation under my name while I was actively deployed. The room felt heavy. The judge ordered an immediate temporary freeze on the Lake House asset pending full financial investigation. Landon's face lost color. This wasn't just a divorce dispute anymore. It was potential financial misconduct connected to property ownership. For the first time since this began, I saw uncertainty in Brielle's posture. The confidence she walked in with was gone. After the hearing, she tried to approach me outside the courtroom. "Colton, we can talk about this," she said quietly. I looked at her calmly. "We are talking," I replied. "Just not privately." I walked away without raising my voice. Because revenge wasn't about yelling or humiliation. It was about letting truth speak in the right room. And now the truth had a legal record. After the asset freeze, everything changed quickly. The financial investigation moved forward. Bank officials were required to provide full access logs, including device history and confirmation records. The digital approval under my name was traced back to Brielle's personal laptop. There was no hacking, no outside interference. It came from inside our home. Her attorney requested a private negotiation before things escalated further. Criminal charges were now a possibility if the forgery claim held. That risk affected more than just the divorce. It could damage her record permanently. We met in a conference room instead of a courtroom this time. No emotions, just documents on a long table. Gideon laid out the terms clearly. Full financial restitution of the transferred funds. Immediate forfeiture of any claim to the Lake House property. Withdrawal of the emotional abandonment claim from the divorce filing. In return, we would not push for aggressive criminal prosecution. Brielle looked exhausted. The confident expression she once had was gone. Landon wasn't there this time. I later learned he had stepped back once he understood the legal exposure. Being tied to disputed funds and a possible fraud case wasn't part of whatever future he had imagined. The engagement ended quietly. Renovations on the Lake House stopped immediately after the freeze. Contractors withdrew once payments became uncertain. The dream property became a financial burden instead of a fresh start. Within weeks, Brielle agreed to the settlement. The funds were returned through court-ordered transfers. The property was listed for sale under legal supervision. Any profit would go toward covering legal costs and restoring the joint assets. I didn't celebrate when the money came back. I didn't feel victorious when I heard the engagement was over. I just felt steady, because this was never about destroying her life. It was about correcting what was wrong. The divorce finalized shortly after. This time, the paperwork reflected reality. Irreconcilable differences, no dramatic accusations. When I walked out of the courthouse that final day, I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt clarity. She didn't lose everything because I attacked her. She lost it because shortcuts leave evidence. And when truth catches up, it doesn't need shouting. It just needs documentation. A few months after everything settled, I stood in front of a small house on a quiet street just outside the city. It wasn't a lakefront property. It didn't have luxury finishes or dramatic views. But it was mine. The recovered funds were enough for a solid down payment. I chose something simple, manageable, peaceful. No big statements. No show of victory. Just a fresh start. Unpacking boxes alone felt strange at first. 6 years of marriage reduced to a few personal items and lessons I never asked for. But the silence in the house didn't feel empty. It felt calm. People sometimes think revenge means shouting, exposing secrets, or watching someone fall apart publicly. For me, it meant something different. It meant staying steady when I had every reason to explode. It meant documenting facts instead of reacting emotionally. It meant letting the system handle what I could have handled with anger, and doing it the right way. I never spoke badly about Brielle to mutual friends. I never chased rumors. I never tried to embarrass her, because the truth had already done its job. Deployment didn't ruin my marriage. Distance didn't destroy trust. Character did. If she had simply come to me honestly and said she wanted out, it would have hurt, but I would have respected the honesty. What broke everything wasn't the divorce. It was the planning, the secrecy, the attempt to rewrite the story while I was overseas serving. One evening, sitting on my new porch, I thought back to that first night under the foreign sky when I felt completely powerless. I remember staring into the darkness, thinking my life had collapsed. Now I understood something clearly. Losing someone who betrays you isn't a loss. It's a correction. The money came back. The legal record was clean. My name was clear. But more important than any of that, I walked away without becoming bitter. I kept my dignity, and that mattered more than any lake house ever could. I didn't get revenge through destruction. I got it through patience, through truth, through rebuilding quietly. And sometimes the strongest ending isn't dramatic at all. It's simply standing in your own doorway, knowing no one can take what's yours again.